Hey, it's Evan from Grumpy's Greens. Today I'm going to be talking about how to build yourself a heat mat like this one so you can start your seedlings outside in the springtime when it's super chilly. Here we go. Hello there, fellow farmers, gardeners, etc. I have done a video in the past about this. You can check it out right here. But if you haven't checked out this video, I'm going to go in a little bit more detail today in regards to how I actually built this and how I put it together, because in my first video it was already assembled and in winter mode, or spring mode if you will, so you didn't really get a very clear view of how things are actually put together. So today I'm going to flip it from summer mode into spring mode, or winter/spring mode, and go through all the steps and show you in more detail what's involved with building something to this effect, and yeah, just to give you a little bit more clarity on how this all works so that you can do it at your home or on your farm or whatever. Okay, so I'm standing here in front of my summer version of the heat mat. So this is basically just your standard kind of nursery style hardware cloth table, so that has good drainage and you can prune roots that are growing through the base of your trays. So if you have like a solid table like this here, you might get more matting of your roots, especially if you're using soil blocks like I do. So yeah, having a hardware cloth like this or chicken wire, whatever you decide to use, allows for root pruning. But anyway, I digress. This is the summer mode right here, and it's just built with 2x4s, and these are 2x3s, and you can see that leaves a little bit of a gap right here that we're going to use for insulation later on, and that's what that is right there piled up. My table is 12 feet long. This table is just on top of sawhorses here, so it's not attached or anything. I can lift it up, and I've already flipped it. So in the summertime it would be flipped over, so the hardware cloth would be on the top. When I'm in winter mode, spring mode, I flip it so that I can lay the insulation in here. So I forgot to put in corner pieces here, and when I dropped in the insulation and you get weight on these corners, they sag and they sink with the weight of the trays. So I'm going to amend that by putting in these little blocks that I've already cut. These are just 2x3s. These are probably offcuts from when I built this in the first place. But they're just going to sit in the corner here like this. I'm just going to drill them in so that the corners are supported as well. I should have caught that the first time, but it's not the end of the world. So I'm going to get at this right away. Just going to drill these in real quick, and then we'll get on to the next step. So I've got all of my corners reinforced here. Just popped those in like that. Really, I mean, not the end of the world without them either, but once you realize you've made a mistake, it's hard to keep going without fixing it. So the next step here is I got this insulation. This is just standard cheap like foam insulation. When I've got the heat mat on here, I don't want all that heat to escape below. So I'm going to pop these in, and then this one here. All right, so the insulation's in here now. So I just want to say one thing right off the bat here. This is not how to build a heat mat that's going to be the most efficient in terms of holding heat overnight, or creating that kind of heat sink that you're looking for with a heat mat. The angle that I'm taking with my heat mat is versatility. So my farm is very, very small. It's 1/8 of an acre, and it's an urban farm, so I don't have space on my property for like massive infrastructure like a giant nursery or storage or anything like that. So every square inch of my property I have to make the most efficient use of it. So by making a heat mat like this with insulation, and that I can take out and flip easily and fast, it's more advantageous to me than to create something that's more of a permanent piece. Like typically when you're doing a heat mat like this, you're going to use something like sand or concrete, and you're going to pour it, but that's very heavy, and sand's really hard to empty out. Like I could use sand because you can empty that and store it or whatever, but then you got to keep that sand somewhere. This insulation I can just kind of slide in behind my shed and it stays there for the summer, and then in the winter I pull it out and I throw it in here. I flip the table, so this table as well is now multi-purpose, right? It's a heat mat in the winter, in the spring, and then in the summertime I flip it, and it's there for seedlings or drying, curing onions, etc., things like that. So that's why I'm doing it this way. It's not that I'm unaware of the other methods, but if you're in a similar situation to me where you want something that can be easily flipped over for spring and summer use and is multifaceted, then this might be the approach for you. Anyway, so now that that's all said, I'm going to move on to the next step. So when I've got things stored away in the winter time, I just put it in this tote, which I store under the table during the summer. I just got all the stuff that I need to finish up the jobs. Okay, so I've got everything out of the tote there. I've got the pond liner, and I've got my in-floor heating. You can use in-floor heating. You can use the same kind of wire heating that they put on roofs to thaw out ice in the wintertime, so that you're not destroying your shingles in the winter, basically. That's probably the cheaper method. So I'm gonna roll this out, and then we'll get on to the next step. All right, so I've got it all rolled out. Now, if you look here, you can see that the coils aren't really as wide as the table. Before I had, if you can believe it, I had a smaller nursery than this before. So before I upgraded my nursery to this size, I had another one where the tables were running this way, and they were built out of pallets, which is plywood on top. And this is how I coiled this the first time, was to run over those pallets, which were narrower than this table is. So last year I just kind of threw this together as it is. What I'm going to do this year is I'm going to take the time to actually recoil these so that they are spaced out to the edge. If I was germinating seeds on these tables, I'd always get much quicker germination in the center of the table, and then the edges of those trays would all be a little, like about a week behind, so I'd have these like really inconsistent starts. And it's not just with the starts. Even if I wasn't germinating seeds in here and I just had them on the mat to grow, they were growing at a more rapid pace in the center and slower on the edges. I'd like to have better consistency this year, so that's just one thing I'm going to do to improve that. All right, so I got the cable ripped out, and these are just they're kind of like rails that this kit came with, and these little tongues that bend are what hold it in. But once the cable is removed, they kind of just are springing around all over. It's going to make it really difficult for me to do this, so I'm just going to I've got some old roofing nails, and I'm just going to go through and kind of tack these in with the roofing nails to keep them in place, so that it's easier for me to thread the liner and get it spaced out the way I like it. Right, so my nails are in, and you can see how much tidier that is now. See, I haven't put in a lot. There's just one at each end, and one on this side too. Same thing here. Just actually, I didn't even put one here. Just one on the very end, and then these little bits. So the idea is not to like pin this down permanently. It's just so that it's easier for me to run my cables now. Okay, so I'm going to weave this up now. Here we go. Well, I love when things work out, and first try, I got it pretty evenly spaced out here. I'm happy with that. This time it's right up to the edges all the way across. So now that this is all laid out here, again, going over all the steps, we've got our frame here with the hardware cloth base, 2x4s with 2x3 lumber in between. Then I've got my styrofoam insulation. I'm using the in-floor heating for bathrooms and basements or whatever. You can also use the shingle thawing cables, works the same way. You know, I probably went the more expensive route. I think that the in-floor heating is probably more expensive. The thing that I will mention is that I think that the cable that you use for the roof is just something you can plug into a regular outlet. With the in-floor heating, I had to actually put together a proper, I had to do some actual wiring, and had to buy box and everything, and get it done properly, because that's just how, like, they're just, you know, they hook up to a thermostat in your home typically, so it's a little bit more complicated. So if you're not comfortable with doing electrical work, definitely I would recommend going with the roof thawing cables, shingle thawing cables. The other added bonus to those is they're designed to be weatherproof. So, you know, with this, there's risk, I guess, of it getting wet at some point. So there is that to consider. Like, these are not designed to be exposed to moisture constantly while in use. Like, obviously, if you're pouring concrete or something, they're gonna get wet initially, but not when they're actually being used. But because I'm putting the pond liner on top, I'm not really worried about that, and my pond liner is wide enough and long enough that it actually drapes over the end here. And what I do is I drill the thermostat onto the end of the table here. You can see where I've done it in the past, these holes here. And then I cover the electrical box up with the pond liner to make sure it stays dry and it's not exposed to sunlight and everything like that. So I'm gonna throw the pond liner on here now, and then we'll get on to the next step, which is attaching these guys here, which are my, like, homemade housings for the hoops that are going to go over and hold on the poly, which will make this kind of like a little mini low tunnel within the tunnel, which is extra insulation. So here we go. Okay, pond liner's on. As I was going, I just wanted to make sure I was lifting up every now and then and taking a peek underneath and making sure that none of my cable got misaligned while I was putting that on, as you have to drag it a little bit. This is a heavy duty pond liner. This isn't just like a thin polyurethane. This is like a rubber. It's very thick, heavy duty stuff, so that when you're dragging your trays and going through your general wear and tear throughout the season, it's not going to just rip on you and allow water to break through. And, you know, we want to keep that electrical as dry as possible, right? So now I'm going to just drill on the electrical box right here so that I can adjust the temperature settings easily and, you know, monitor it throughout the season. So that's the next step. Okay, so I've got that drilled in, and you can see all the, so it's just really nice and convenient having it here at the end of the table. It's not plugged in right now, but, you know, I can set all my temperatures and everything here. It's programmable, so I can, you know, adjust it for certain times of day to turn up or turn off. So now I'm going to put on the housings for my hoops. These I've just made out of irrigation tubing. I always try and reuse and recycle where I can. So these are just the white stripe hard polyurethane irrigation. These are 1 inch, I think, maybe 3/4 of an inch, half inch, I don't know. Anyway, so these have I've just got a big washer here on them because I'm just using the wire hoops that you use for your low tunnels, not like heavy duty or anything like that, just wire. So the washer pins this flat so that the wire doesn't fall through the hoop. So that's what the washer's for, and I use 2 screws so that it doesn't tilt one way or the other with the hoops on. So these just get drilled into the 2x4 here to the side. I go right through the plastic. Doesn't really matter to me. It helps keep the plastic in place so that when I'm moving trays and everything, I know that that's gonna stay solid. And yeah, so let's pop these in real quick. Just to give you a clear idea of what I mean by having 2 screws in here. So this first screw with the washer is what stops the wire from going all the way through, but you can see it's spinning, right? This is pretty basic stuff, but yeah, the second screw isn't so much to hold it on there or do anything functional other than to stop it from twisting, so that when you've got your hoops on and there's a bit of weight on there, they're not gonna move on you when you're adjusting your poly and everything like that. Okay, so I've just got my wire hoops out now. I store them under the table throughout the summer when I'm not using them. These are just regular hoops. I've bent them on the corners so that they're more of a kind of rectangular shape, and you can see how easy it is just to pop them in to the housings. like this, and there you go, like your hoops on. You don't need anything fancy. You don't have to go out and buy your, PVC conduit. If you really want it to look polished and everything, sure. But if you're like me and you're a farmer, I know you've always got little offcuts of irrigation tubing and stuff like that lying around. So it's just a really good way to put it to use rather than just throwing it away. I think that, farming, and even on a small scale, there's a lot of waste that we could be mitigating if we think with this kind of mindset of reusing and recycling as much as possible. So I'm just going to pop these in. It's still too early in the season here in Ontario, Canada, to be starting our seeds just yet. Like, I don't have a heated greenhouse. I just grow everything out in the field or in caterpillar tunnels. So in this time of year, a lot of people ask what I do, and it's stuff like this. I'm resetting my infrastructure. I'm doing my planning, things like that, so that when the season does get going, I'm ready to roll. So right now, I don't have any plants that are ready to be put out here. But when the spring gets going, things pile up really quick and time starts to move very, very fast. So anything that I can do now while I have the downtime, I'm going to do it. We're just popping in the last one now here. This is kind of difficult actually to do with one hand from across the table, but yeah. So the washers keep that flat so that these little wires aren't falling through, because they are just tiny, right? They're like a couple millimeters thick, and that's it. So that's what it looks like when it's all put together. I keep my plastic in here folded up under that pallet. I'm not going to take it out just yet because there's no point until I get plants on it. But yeah, this is it. It's all assembled now. All I have to do is plug it in. That's it for today. The heat mat is done. Hope you liked it. Please like and subscribe, and we'll catch you in the next one.